One, two, one.
Hello everyone, welcome to this video in Denis Chang's kitchen in Montreal. I'm here because I'm playing Jungle Fest Northwest next week, but this week I'm staying with Denis, have some gigs with Denis, make some videos, talk a little bit about music and other stuff. And I thought it would be nice to, if some of you don't know Denis, he's a very famous guitar player, instructor in the world of gypsy jazz, and he has many different interesting things going on. And I thought I'd ask some questions about it, because maybe it might be interesting for some of you even to study a little bit with Denis. Because he has a couple of things going on. One of these things, of course, is his DC Music School, which is maybe one of the most well-known online education sites, initially only for gypsy jazz, but you expanded a little bit to other jazz styles, right, like modern jazz. Mm-hmm. So how did that start?
That started in 2006. Someone in Canada approached me to make DVDs for gypsy jazz for learning. And I thought, all right, why not? And I thought we could do something about rhythm guitar, because in those days, gypsy jazz was not what it is today.
Okay.
And it's still not popular today, but
no.
But even less so back then. So what I knew, I could show. And actually, I thought the market would just be like people in North America, which again was really small. So I thought, all right, just a little bit of pocket change. But surprisingly, a lot of people in Europe bought it. Yeah. And we ended up selling the entire stock in a year.
But this was it already a DC Music School?
No, so it's that. And then we made more DVDs, and then we did with Stokelo as well. And then the business aspect was, so I realized that the person who contacted me, really nice guy, and there's no
animosity.
Yeah, not at all. But he was also new to this, and I realized from a business point of view, I started to look at other people's contracts, what the real deal is, and I was getting ripped off hardcore. And so I decided, all right, I'm gonna do everything on my own. That was in 2011, and which is very daunting because I didn't know how to do anything on mine. I didn't know anything about video editing. I didn't know anything about recording. So it was just trial and error. That's how it started.
But of course, you already had this, because you were friends with lots of the high-profile players in the genre.
Yes.
So that's the one thing you did have, of course. You had this large library of players that you could approach.
I had a lot of contacts in this gypsy jazz world.
Yeah. So how do you? Because I have a similar thing with the Roseburg Academy, of course. Mm-hmm. What do you think? What do you think is the most valuable to record for an online lesson, right? Because there's no one-to-one feedback, no one can correct you. So what do you think is the best to do for people? Two things. What do you think from your point of view is the best to produce? And what do you think from the customer's point of view is the best to work with the products?
Well, it really depends on the style. And in this style of music, gypsy jazz, most of the top players, as you know, are self-taught. Therefore, one-on-one lessons would actually be useless, because I've seen a lot of them do workshops. They play by instinct, as you know, and they don't know what to say at all. And so I help the artists a lot. So I've realized that for me, for gypsy jazz, the best formula has been to keep the talking to a minimum, like just talk like fun stories, how they started. That's always fun to know. But then for the actual time, get them to play as much as possible in different common situations, standards, chord progressions. Like, I don't know, Chavlo Schmidt is very famous for doing like rhythmic tricks. Right. So I have the backing track, and here go, just let yourself go. Then everything's transcribed. So I think that's been the best method. And then for the students, then they can just, if they know how to learn from transcribing, of course we're transcribed for them already, then they can just take what they want. That's the idea.
So do you recommend, like, when people use a transcription, that they learn the whole thing or just learn the stuff that they like?
No, okay, that's a good point. Because a lot of people, for example, I don't check out the YouTube comments for DC musicals often, but sometimes people say, how are we supposed to learn from this? And that's crazy because even if you're a beginner, you can, if you know what to take, you can learn from even Birelli, the most complicated thing, because you don't have to necessarily take a lick. You can take the concept. You see that Birelli's playing a super monstrous B flat minor arpeggio over A7. You don't have to play the exact arpeggio. You can just take the B flat minor arpeggio, things like that. So no, you can take what you want. And since I've witnessed all this, I take a lot of things. I've taken quite a lot.
And then, of course, you produced a bunch of backing tracks.
Yeah.
And especially for the purpose, right? So people can take a lick and then apply it to the backing.
Slow down. Lick or concept.
Yeah. That's basically the same thing I do on the YouTube channel, right? Because I make the backing tracks, and when I show you something, it's not the point to take it literally. Of course, you could practice that for technique or for, but then also just break it down, use small parts of it, use the concept.
There's also the time feel that you can try to go for. If you see like they're doing some cool rhythmic things, I don't know whatever, like a lot of syncopation, you can also copy that.
So you have many artists, right, on different instruments. There's guitar, violin, clarinet. Even who do you have for clarinet?
Giacomo Smith.
Oh, great. Bass. Yes. Are you going to expand, because you just added a brand new piano to the studio? Great. Are you going to expand to piano?
See. Well, one step at a time.
Okay. And so, who's your next? What's your next project? Who's your next artist?
In about 45 minutes, I'll have to go to the airport to pick up Samson Schmidt.
Oh, great!
So he'll be here.
So that's a good example. So Samson Schmidt, you've studied the artists before you record them, right?
Not by now. I know this style so well that
But you're familiar with what they're good at. So. For instance, Samson Schmidt, what is the thing you're searching for when he plays for your lessons?
I'm actually very attracted to his composition style, so I've created a lot of backing tracks of his compositions. So I think they're just really beautiful songs. And of course, his improvisation style is very deeply rooted in the Eastern, French part of Eastern France. Part of,
like on the border with Germany, right?
It's a very gypsy way of playing. Like the vibrato, the phrasing, and this kind of like high risk taking, as opposed to the Dutch, which is like a lot of planned out. So quote unquote planned out.
Right. Yeah, but
you know what I mean.
Like quantized.
Yeah, there we go. That's the better word. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, that's the DC Music School. Check that out. Right. I have to say the price is very competitive. I mean, it's not as cheap as my Patreon, but
that's true.
But check it out, because there's really the top caliber artists in the genre. They have produced lessons with Denis. Go check it out; it's really worth it. I checked out some of the lessons. I learned a bunch of stuff from that. So let's go to the next thing that you're kind of well known for. It's the homestay program, right? It's where people are actually in this house, right? They eat in this kitchen. They practice in the rooms back there. They can witness, if you're have an artist here, they can witness the recordings of the artist, and they take lessons with you, right? So how does it go? What is the typical? Let's say I want to stay with you for 2 weeks. What would be the program?
So people who stay less than 2 weeks, it's usually 2 lessons a day.
2 lessons a day.
And I don't count the hours, so like.
So, but do you have like a program, or do you make something tailored to the students?
I mean, I've taught for so long now that I think I have things that I think are very important. Time, tone, all that stuff that everyone thinks is important, but then it's also catered to the students' wants and need, because a lot of my students have been professional musicians, so then I give more material. But then some people are hobbyists too. They're serious about it, but obviously for hobbyists, we're not going to do like very subtle, detailed things.
Right. So you tailor to and what they want, right?
And what they want to. It's not everyone wants the same thing.
How long can they stay? What's the maximum that people have stayed?
Well, some have stayed 2 months, but one person just moved to Montreal.
Okay.
He's my neighbor now.
Okay, so he started as a homestay.
He was a homestay. Then he decided to move to Montreal, and now he's been here for 2 years. Yeah, 2 years.
Right.
Second anniversary.
But that's not the homestay program anymore, right?
Well, no, I still show him things.
Okay. So what would you say if somebody asks, what's the optimum time to spend here? Let's say I'm an intermediate player.
Oh, okay, that's a good point. So a lot of professional musicians have written me, and I told them I don't see the point of you staying more than like a few days.
Right. Okay.
Because they're already smart. Everyone's smart,
Yeah.
but they know how to learn already. Well, I hope so. Anyway, so then I tell them, all right, come for like 5 days. One guy was a professional bluegrass player, graduated from Berkeley and everything. So I just showed him the typical characteristics of Gypsy jazz, and then he can do what he wants with it. Right. I don't see the point of staying any more longer than that.
So if people are interested in it, how do they contact you for that? Do you have a site for that?
No, just by Facebook or Instagram or email.
So when is the next available spot? Because it's like you're booked, right?
May 2, 2020.
Okay, so I have to say I met some people that did the homestay program with Dennis, and they really got a lot of valuable information. Of course, not as valuable as my Patreon.
Go ahead.
Okay, so let's get to the third subject.
But can I just say that?
Yeah, sure.
Because we often have like these intense debates, friendly debates, where we insult each other.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have. One thing I always encourage students to do is to seek out as many different opinions as possible.
Of course.
So I tell them to go talk to everyone. Like, they ask me, should I talk to Christiaan or Robin? I say, talk to everyone. You know, like in the end, this is jazz music, and it's such a personal thing. You have to find out what works for you. So
yeah, we all have our own strength, right?
Yeah.
Robin Nolan is really if you want to learn some really tasteful things that you can apply immediately, right? His lessons are great, right? I mean, I've used his lessons for that too, right? I was like, oh, that's a cool chord, I want to use it. If you want to have learn long lines for lots of standards, you can go to my Patreon and I demonstrate everything. If you want to have lessons with the most famous players, you go to Dennis' site. If you want to learn from Dennis directly, you go to his homestay program. You can do all of those things. Yeah. You don't have to do something excluding something else.
Yeah,
right?
that's something I insist. Yeah.
I basically did the same thing when I was learning it. I went to all the players, learned something from each one that I liked to develop my own kind of style.
For sure.
Okay, so the third thing I want to talk about is that you just started a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well. So a couple of questions. Why did you start a YouTube channel if you already have the DC Music School and other things going on?
So actually, the DC Music School channel has quite a number of subscribers, but it's an entity of its own. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I wanted to keep that private. I didn't want people to know that DC was me. So a lot of that, actually, I've been successful on that end. Like, people don't associate that with me, so it's separate. For the YouTube channel, it's something I did because a lot of people every year were asking me a lot of very detailed questions. I would answer like an entire chapter's worth of email, and just for that one person. Yeah. And I figured I could just do all these videos, and just put it there. Then when people write me again, I can just link it to them. That's the only reason, actually. Then eventually, what I want to do, something separate from DC Music, is do more things exclusive to what I'm doing. So a lot of people ask me about beginner stuff for DC Music School, and while you can use DC Music School at any level, strictly speaking, you have to also know how to use it. Right. But I want to do some content in the future where it's really focused on something very specific, and often since my specialty is gypsy jazz, it's going to be based on that. So the thing I know from YouTube, doing YouTube now for like 1 year and a half, I wouldn't say professional, but I'm spending a lot of time, is that the concept for the channel is very important, right? You don't want to have, okay, now I'm doing an interview, now I'm going playing the street, now there's this concert. Now, so what is the concept of your channel? Do you have a concept? Mainly teaching. A lot of teaching, and I know, yeah, so I'm not trying to be like a professional YouTuber, like caring about, I mean, of course it helps. Yeah. I know it helps, but I want to make content that I think is worth making for me. And so because if I watch your channel, I would say because I'm teaching too, but it's very different, right? Yeah. Mine is very fun. Okay, you have this lick, but yours is more philosophical almost and more historical, right? So far. I thought that's not the thing you're going for. No, but so far it's been like that. It just ended up that way. Okay, and it's both guitar, right, and violin, right? Because I wanted to ask Dennis, because here's the thing, I'm a violin player. First and foremost, right? I mean, the guitar is getting close to the violin playing, but every time I make a violin video, there's nobody is watching it. And then I said, I'm gonna make some violin videos, and I told him like nobody's gonna watch that. I said, we're gonna do it anyway. So what's your experience? Yeah, it's really well. It's as you said, very few people watch it, but I still it's something that I believe in, because I think no one watches it because there's no content for that kind of stuff at that level. That's true. But why do you think, because I have a theory, why do you think there's so much less views from
when you make a violin video than when you make a guitar video. Why is that?
Because we're strictly speaking jazz violin.
Jazz violin, yeah, jazz violin.
Yeah. So like, you know, you go to guitar players, you ask them to name some jazz guitar players, they can probably name a few names. So you go to violinists, probably at best Stefan Grappelli.
Right.
Didier Lockwood, as much of a superstar as he is, still not necessarily people won't necessarily.
But I think it's also the mindset. I think a guitar player is like you sit down with your guitar on your lap, right? You have your laptop, you immediately go search for some licks.
That too.
And violin players, right? They're behind their stand, right? And they have some. That's what the way they learn the violin.
It's also a different culture.
That's what I mean. It's a culture.
Guitar has a strong self-taught culture.
Yeah.
So you seek out information on your own violin, and even I noticed, even in classical, like I talk to classical violinists, I know often quite more than they do about pedagogy or things, the history of pedagogy, the thing, or even names of artists.
So you just started actually you picked up the violin like a year, 2 years ago?
March 2017.
So what do you dove deep into the technical side of it, right? So maybe just tell a little bit, because if there are violin players watching, what did you discover that you found that like a lot of violin players don't know?
The history of holding the instrument.
Right.
Yeah.
So what did you discover?
I mean, I discovered, well, a lot of people didn't know that Paganini played without both, neither Chinrest or shoulder rest.
Right.
Because Paganini was born in 1782. Chinrest was roughly invented around 1819, 1820 by Louis Spohr in Germany. I think Germany.
Yeah.
And who knows how long it took before people started saying, okay, let's start using maybe another 5 years, because it's not like internet today, you advertise.
Right.
It has to be word of mouth. So by the time that 1920, Paganini would have been close to his 40s.
Yep.
So he developed his technique early on. So it was held in a completely different way. And then the Chinrest came along and then allowed the violin to be held yet another in a different way.
Yeah.
And then the shoulder rest, that was what, like after the war, after World War II, it started becoming more and more popular. And then another technique came from that. So
what do you think about the controversy between playing with and without shoulder rest? What are your thoughts? Do you think one is better than the other?
Not necessarily, no. Like I said, I think if people can play comfortably, and that's very difficult to know whether you can play comfortably or not. It's actually quite difficult.
You have to try both for a long time. Yeah.
But if you have, let's say you're 50 years old and you can still play 5 hours a day, then you're probably good. Whatever setup you have.
Okay, so I had one more question I wanted to ask you before we sign out. First of all, I want you to show us. Oh no, this is the thing. Plug your stuff. So plug all your channels. I will put the information in the description. But so you have your DC Music School. Where should people go to?
You can check
find that.
The DC Music School YouTube channel. Then there are links there.
Okay, I'll put a link to the YouTube channel. Of course, subscribe to the channel.
Yeah.
They should subscribe to your personal channel. What's the name of the channel?
I think it's Denis Chang Music.
Denis Chang Music. I will find it. I'll put a link. And the homestay program, they can contact you.
You can check out my Instagram, Denis Chang Music, I think as well, or you can go to my website, denischang.com. There's actually a
put a link there, right? So check it out. Subscribe to both of his channels. I think a lot of great content will be there. Maybe not so often as I produce, but his content takes a lot more time to conceive and to produce, right?
Yeah, it does.
So of course I don't want to leave all of you without a cool lick. So Denis, can you show us a cool lick that I can, of course, put in tab, and then you can learn that.
So this is something I got from Django. I think he'd done this a few times, but I think I first heard it in one of the versions of Place de Bouquet.
What are the chords?
So we're gonna do this in G though. 251 in G.
251 in G. Let's play like 3 times then.
Okay. Okay. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. By accident.
I will transcribe the first two.
Because often it's conceptual. It's not a lick per se. But
can you play it really slow?
Okay.
Like with the count. So
yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, that's the idea. That's the important part. The rest doesn't matter. But yeah.
So what's the concept is going?
It's going from A minor to 5-1 and then to D augmented.
Yeah. That's nice. Yeah. Okay, great. You see the tab. Of course, it's only one link. But if you want to have access and download the tab, you can always check out my Patreon. There's a tab for this video and for every video ever made. Check out Den's stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!